behind the stitch, how vintage fashion preserves history. Fashion can be fleeting, and with trends cycling through faster and faster, individuality, uniqueness, and sustainability is on the decline. But vintage clothing holds a lasting appeal that goes beyond trends. Each piece has its own story, from a perfectly preserved 1950s dress to a well-worn denim jacket of the 80s. Today, we're diving into the cultural and historical significance of vintage fashion and how these garments preserve pieces of the past. Vintage pieces stand apart in their attention to detail and quality. Today, you can still find old buttons, delicate stitching, and even little imperfections that reflect the hands that crafted them. These details are part of what gives vintage its enduring charm and value. Chapter 1. Craftsmanship and Longevity. Vintage fashion has always been about quality. Many pieces were made from durable fabrics, like heavy cottons, wool, and real leather, materials that were designed to last. Unlike fast fashion, which is often mass-produced and lacks longevity, vintage clothing is often handmade or produced in small batches. That's why these items still exist decades later. A 1970s blazer or a 1960s mini dress isn't just a remnant of fashion history. It's proof of craftsmanship that stands the test of time. This craftsmanship is what makes vintage fashion so special. Wearing a piece of clothing that's been carefully preserved for decades is like owning a small part of history. From careful stitching to choice of fabrics, each element was made to last. Chapter 2. Historical Significance. Beyond quality, vintage clothes often capture the spirit and struggles of their time. Take, for instance, Levi's jeans, which emerged in the 1800s as durable workwear for miners and labourers. In the 1960s, they took on a new meaning as young people embraced them as a symbol of rebellion and youth culture. Each pair of Levi's carries a story of American heritage and cultural transformation. Or consider the miniskirt of the 1960s. Short and unapologetic, the miniskirt became a symbol of women's liberation, challenging traditional expectations and offering women a bold new form of self-expression. Designers like Mary Kwan, pictures in the middle here, revolutionized fashion by creating silhouettes that gave women freedom of movement, marking a pivotal shift in the way fashion intersected with societal change. These iconic pieces remind us of the social and political landscape they emerge from. By holding on to these pieces, we're holding on to memories of past eras, each one capturing a story that goes beyond the fabric. Chapter 3. A Link to the Past. Each vintage item connects us with its era and previous owners, creating a bridge from the past to the present. Vintage fashion allows us to appreciate the unique beauty and individuality of garments made before mass production became the norm. Unlike today's disposable fashion, these pieces were valued, cared for, and passed down through generations. Vintage pieces remind us that clothing was once something to be treasured and maintained rather than discarded. When we wear vintage, we're choosing a style that's not just about looking good, it's about celebrating quality, history, and the stories within the fabric. Vintage fashion brings us closer together, allowing us to experience history in a personal and tangible way. Each piece is a wearable archive of style, values, and moments in time. By embracing vintage, we connect with previous generations, preserving a piece of history with every outfit. So the next time you wear a vintage jacket or dress, remember, you're not just wearing clothes, you're carrying stories, stitched into every scene that continue